I want to prove the identity negative tangent negative x over secant pi over 2 minus x plus cotangent negative x is equal to secant of x plus 1. First thing I'm going to notice is this negative here. Well, because tangent is an odd function, the negative comes out in front. So we'll have two negatives, which will turn into positive tangent. Now secant of pi over 2 minus x is the same thing as cosecant. And the cotangent of negative x will be negative cotangent of x, since cotangent is an odd function. So now I'm going to break this up into sines and cosines. Tangent is sine over cosine. Cosecant is 1 over sine. Cotangent is cosine over sine. In the denominator, so the denominator of 1 over sine minus cosine over sine, they both have a sine in common, so I can subtract those and get 1 minus cosine of x over sine of x. So this sine is going to come all the way to the top, and then I'm going to multiply 1 minus cosine of x with cosine of x. And the reason this happens is because when you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so we'll have sine times sine will be sine squared over cosine times 1 minus cosine. Now I'm going to break up sine squared in terms of cosine, so that's going to be 1 minus cosine squared. And in the denominator, I'm just going to leave it as it is. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I can factor out the 1 minus cosine squared as 1 minus cosine times 1 plus cosine. And then the 1 minus cosine factor is going to cancel. So I'm left with 1 plus cosine over cosine. And at this point, I'm going to break it up into two fractions. So the two fractions are going to have the common denominator of cosine. One over cosine is secant. And then cosine over cosine is 1. So now we just proved the identity. Next example, we have secant to the 4th times tangent to the 3/2. We want to prove that it's equal to tangent to the 5th plus 2 tangent cubed plus tangent times tangent to the 1/2. Okay, first what we're going to do is break up secant to the 4th as just secant squared squared. And then we'll just leave tangent to the 3/2. Actually, we're going to break that up. So tangent to the 3/2 is just going to be tangent times tangent to the 1/2 power. Right, because here you would just, as you multiply, you add the exponents. So tangent is to the first power, and then add 1 plus 1/2 to get to 3.5. Now, I know the identity that 1 plus tangent squared is equal to secant squared. So I'm going to substitute that in. So secant squared is going to be 1 plus tangent squared. And then I'm going to square that. And then multiply that by tangent times tangent to the 1/2. FOIL, or expand the 1 plus tangent squared to get 1 plus 2 tangent squared plus tangent to the 4th. Then multiply that by tangent and tangent to the 1/2. So I'm going to distribute out this tangent to all three terms to get tangent plus 2 tangent cubed plus tangent to the 5th, and then multiply that by tangent to the 1/2 power. And notice that's exactly what I have here, except I just switched the order of tangent to the 5th and tangent. So the proof is complete. Now I just want to simplify the following function. I have tangent of y times cosecant squared y minus cosine of y times cosecant of y. Best thing to do for this is break it up into sines and cosines. So tangent is sine over cosine. Cosecant squared is 1 over sine squared. And then cosecant is 1 over sine. Now I can cancel out one of the sine factors. I'll have 1 over cosine y times 1 over sine y minus, now this would just be cosine times 1 over sine y, which is cosine y over sine y. I can simplify 1 over cosine y as secant y, and 1 over sine y as cosecant y. And cosine over sine, we just write as cotangent y. And so we simplified this. Last one, we have cotangent negative x over sine pi over 2 minus x plus ln sine of x minus ln cosine of x. Cotangent of negative x, well, we can factor out the negative since it is an odd function. And then sine of pi over 2 minus x is just cosine of x. Now I can bring up the cosine and the sine into 1 natural log. And whenever you subtract logs of the same base, so here because it's natural log, it's base e, you can just divide the inside. So we'll divide sine and cosine. The next step, I'm going to break up negative cotangent as negative cosine over sine. Then divide that by cosine. And sine over cosine is just tangent. So I'm going to put that in here. And now I have to simplify this. So negative cosine over sine divided by cosine. This cosine is going to go over here. So it's negative cosine over sine times cosine plus ln of tangent. Cosines cancel, so I'm left with negative 1 over sine, which is negative cosecant, and then plus ln of tangent. Okay, and that is complete.